Welcome. We were just kind of chit-chatting, and why don't I formally open up the meeting for the Senior Tax Work-Off Committee. It's 6 o'clock on Thursday, December 17th. And we're meeting under COVID operations. So the meeting is a Zoom meeting remotely, and all votes will be taken by roll call vote. And if there's any members of the public, they can certainly speak and have public speak at the beginning. I don't see anyone else. I see Jay that wants to come in. Let's make sure that he can get in. But I don't think we have any public speak.
Councilor Kwasinski, did we lose Stan Diamond from this committee?
We have not seen him in quite some time. I haven't spoken with him.
Okay.
I know he may have spoken with Joe. Does anyone else have any other information?
I don't know.
Brendan, is he on your board?
No, he's not on our board, but he's part of the Easthampton Neighbors board, which I'm also part of. But what I can do is I could reach out to him just directly. I have frequent contact with him, so I'll just ask him if he's, wants to be part of the committee, that he should probably attend and the next meeting we have, possibly.
Well, that would be great.
I'll email him. I'll follow up.
Do we have anyone that would like to record the minutes for this meeting?
Want to?
Don't all raise your hand at the same time.
I'll do it.
Peg, all right, good. Nice job, Peg.
Team player, that's me.
Yeah, I was so worried that I had messed up by not sending the video to
Yeah, that's me.
to Easthampton Media when I went to look at it today, because I had a question, but thank you. And Jen was very helpful in answering that question, so thank you, Jen. We resolved that. All right. I don't see anyone else wanting to join. We had gone over, and first of all, I guess let's back up and see if we have any reports regarding any of the questions.
So could I?
Jen?
Oh. You're on mute.
We can't hear you. You're on mute. Still on mute. Uh-oh.
I think she's talking to her.
We're particularly, we want to be on mute, I think.
Yes. So my daughter just came in and she was talking like, I'm on a call.
All work from home, yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's lovely. So I have to apologize. I completely dropped the ball on inviting Val and Lori to this meeting.
Oh, my gosh.
Mainly because it snuck up on me. I was like,
oh my gosh, it happened so quickly. We usually have at least 2 weeks to do this. Yes.
Yeah, and it's like, it wasn't actually until I signed on to the meeting and I was like, oh, so I just actually shot them both an email, just letting them know what we need from them in terms of a timeline. Right. Mainly saying we just want to make sure that we're giving the seniors enough time to work the hours that are required, but we want them to be able to finish those hours, tally the credits, give it to Lori or the assessor's office and audit respectively, so that the credit not only gets on the bill, but also, audit has time to do the journal entries that they need to do. So I just reached out to them via email. I did offer that they could hop on if they're free right now. I mean, I know it's last minute, and again, I apologize, but
don't expect them to do that.
No. At the very least, I'm sure that they'll reply to me via email, and then I'll forward that to you.
I think we can pull that together. Peg, you had a question.
Yeah, my lights keep going out. I think, Jen, you know this, Lori's last day is December 31st. Mm-hmm. So we have whatever the math is on that.
Yep.
to get to her. And then obviously Val's last day is February.
Yes.
So we have a tight timeline to get some information. And what I was going to ask, and I hate to do this because I was the one who wasn't here last week, but is there any, and there was no recording, is there any chance, that you guys could summarize really quickly?
I think we can do that because I managed to pull together some notes without rewatching the video and kind of put a very bad face to the edits of the lovely presentation you had put together for the departments, Peg. So what I was hoping to do a little later is to go through the entire package again and hopefully get some good comment as to how it can be organized, refined, and kind of pulled together. And here's Joe, and I hope he hasn't been waiting too long. Multitasking here with pulling together the Joe. Good.
One of the things.
So we will go over that.
Yeah.
One of the things.
I was just going to tell this group while you were letting Joe in. One of the things we talked about in City Council last night was that we probably will introduce it maybe the second meeting of January, but we won't be able to do the presentation until at least February 3rd at the earliest. So we have until the 20th to get it on the agenda, and then the 3rd to actually do it.
This is all good news as long as we think that the mayor is taking whatever steps are necessary to. I believe we're going to be using the tax overlay account, and that is the way that we'll have to fund this, because that is clearly the way it's set up, unless there's a workaround for any cannabis funds, and maybe that can be discussed with Lori and Val before they both leave and retire. So let's see. Is it possible to make a co-host here?
Yes. Click on the person and then right-click on the 3 dots.
We're here. Click on the person.
Yeah, whoever person you want to make co-host.
On the person, on the 3 dots on the screen. Okay.
Yep.
Make co-host. Peg, you are now co-host. Good. So, in case somebody else shows up,
yeah.
You may catch it, and I want to be sure that isn't the reason that the general public isn't showing up, because we don't let them in.
Yeah.
I apologize, folks who may be listening to this sometime in the future. We are in the middle of COVID-19 crisis, and these have been stressful times for everybody, and it's been a very stressful year as we approach the end of the year in terms of learning new skills and ways of doing things, and really struggling to do our best to get by. So I congratulate all of you for the work and the ways you've participated in this and have helped me to carry through and carry on. So thank you so much. Any other thoughts before we begin looking at the presentation? I'm thinking of looking at the presentation in terms of content. And I think to summarize the meeting very briefly, we wanted to be able to reduce the amount of information we were giving in the stream, and maybe have folks talk about things more than what we write. And we may or may not choose to write a separate report that is a little more detailed. So we've edited a few things, Peg, and you can recommend putting them back in. We're all amenable here. So let me attempt to share screen, if I may, unless there's some other thoughts that what we need to do. Okay. Oops, which one? Screen.
Because I did send a revision based on Joe's feedback. Is that the one you all got?
I did see Joe's feedback, yes.
Okay,
and
so that's the one you should have.
I put that in. Now let's see if we're sharing the screen here.
Yep.
Oh, good. All right. So, we actually went page by page. We'll do it again because without the benefit of the video, we're kind of looking at this. And I thought we should like give them 3 like points and try to re-emphasize those points. What is it? Who benefits? And should we do it? That's what we were looking at. So the committee worked all summer long to pull together an evaluation of what else has been happening in Massachusetts, from Pittsfield to Plymouth, Middleton to Southwick. We have evaluated communities along the Connecticut River Valley and around the 495, 128 belt in Boston. And kind of like, here's what we found. I'm thinking we would pull this out, Easthampton, because we don't want to like give the full proposal of what we want in the beginning, but just talk about a screenshot of what the communities are, and then do a quick summary that, you know, it goes from range from $500 to $1,500, from as little as 5 participants to as many as 150 participants, and an investment of $2,500 to $150,000. With most communities,
not list the towns.
I would list this here, but not list Easthampton.
Okay, but leave this the way it is.
Leave it. I think it's good to give the sample and kind of say, this is what we found other communities are doing, and this is what the program is about. Well, what is it? I've highlighted in yellow the thought that the areas that I think we need to include, and drop this out, or maybe talk about it.
Yep.
Because it doesn't. I thought it would be helpful to just focus on a few points, but I couldn't make this edit. The edit was help seniors. Well, it's not all seniors, it's senior homeowners. So help senior homeowners, and I couldn't make the change. So I am a PowerPoint learner. Let's see. And we talked about identifying the volunteer opportunities. Joe had done, I think, an excellent job in summarizing and making good bullet points with your PowerPoint. So I'm hoping you can step up again and kind of pull this together, or either you or Peg, to kind of make this happen. So, Joe, would you want to take this from here? But Peg has a quick question.
No, I was going to say, like, where is this going? But now where I see, so Joe will take it.
Do you guys want me to just talk through this?
Yeah, how you would envision talking through that?
Sure.
Anything you'd want to add, and other folks may be thinking about what they would add.
The reason I wanted to focus on this is because I think this will be the source of much, I don't want to say anxiety, but the department heads will be very interested in, okay, how do I go about doing this? And I just wanted to put together a brief slide or two that sort of talks about what are we looking at here. And I think if we're looking for volunteer opportunities, the first place to look is at the workload within the department. And I think one candidate for this sort of work would be, the lower priority stuff that goes undone because you don't have enough people. It's the kind of thing, I wish we had the people to get it done, but because we're crunched right now, we don't have it. And so that work would be the first, something to look at. Another option would be workload that increases seasonally. In other words, you may not need the person for the whole year, but during a big chunk of the year, they might, the workload is such that it might benefit by bringing in some extra help. And then the third option I thought would be probably special projects. Let's say that a department head has had an idea for some time about a special project, but again, there hasn't been any manpower or help to do it. And this would be an opportunity to sort of consider this special project. And then the fourth point, which doesn't really, I guess, in all cases, this probably wouldn't be high-skilled work. But if you as a department head had some idea that there was an applicant out there who had some special skills that you could put to use, then you might be able to go talk to them. Could we go down to the next slide, please? And then I just wanted to give some examples of volunteer type positions that appear to be, very common. And the first one being administrative support. And then some of the job tasks are underneath the filing, copying, et cetera. Senior centers was another one, and then libraries, the kind of jobs that you might find in senior centers or libraries. And down to the next slide, please.
Uh-oh, I didn't have another slide.
You did?
Oh, no.
You didn't.
Do you have yours available?
I mean, I've got them. I don't know how I can share them, but just basically the last slide, looked at some of the, can you guys hear me okay?
We hear you perfectly, yes.
Okay.
And I apologize, Joe.
The last slide were just examples of some of the other jobs. For example, in school greeters, library assistants, or reading tutors in Westfield. I wanted to put something from a fire department in there so that the fire department would feel that, they too can play in this. And in Wellesley, some of the tasks were checking house numbers for visibility and painting fire hydrants. Again, from Westfield, they had animal shelter volunteers, where if you want to clean up and take dogs for walks, that's possible. And then also, like from Wellesley, there was a case of an electrical engineer who worked at the municipal light plant. And then in Ludlow, people from the golf course, good work, it's outside, COVID friendly. So anyway, that was pretty much, those were the things that I would have talked to out there, and go through them probably in no more than 5 minutes.
Yep. I think that's great. I'll get that other slide in, and we could work from there, or maybe you could, if this gets passed along and you volunteer.
Sure. I mean, I can shorten this too.
No, I think that was great. I'm also thinking of maybe a COVID page for the moment. Although this will not continue much longer, of what Greenfield is doing outside their buildings for having a greeter outside the municipal building to take and ferry documents in and outside the building is something that they do. And I know I talked to Wellesley again today and had a question for them, and they talked about some of the things that they were doing. They have somebody who takes the minutes of various meetings in the community. Someone who did shorthand, and especially with Zoom. And they also have people helping with Zoom. There are some, they said, hey, some people are really sharp on Zoom and the ability to be able to teach that on whatever level. So I think those are some interesting and relevant kinds of tasks that can be done. But moving on, if we're ready for a new slide, we talked about some of the specifics, and I think we ought to put in somewhere that the committee recommends. These are our recommendations. That we have the program. And I'm not sure we can make this any shorter or more bullet points. Joe, you're good at that, but I think that would be helpful. Must be an owner or a residing
got a question
for which the credit is sought. Peg and Joe.
So there's a few different schools of thought with PowerPoint. And there is the school of thought where you put like 4 words on a page with bullets. And then there's a school of thought where you bold what you want the eye to go to, but you keep detail there so that when they take the document away, they'll know what the heck you were talking about. And I
think you, I bet I know which school of thought you adhere to.
I think it's important that I say this. I've been doing this for about 25 years. And so I have a certain way that I do PowerPoints, and they seem to have worked. But I also acknowledge that what we're trying to do here is sell this program to the city council so that they vote to recommend it to the mayor. And then we have to sell it to the mayor. And what I strongly recommend we not do is try to necessarily turn this into answering every question for every subpopulation in this one presentation. So
absolutely,
when we talk about the department heads, that's a whole separate meeting that I think we should have. And I think we should dig really deep into it. And I think they're kind of sold on participating in it. So what I'm suggesting is let's find the areas that we want the city council to key in on, have them ask questions, but let's not skinny it down too much so that it's just a couple of words. And I also acknowledge, let's not turn it into war and peace. So if we have to take words out, I'm totally fine with that. I just want to make sure that our messaging is very clear, succinct. We get in and we get out and we answer our questions and we don't belabor this for an hour and a half. I think we have to just...
I think we should be shooting for about 15 minutes at most, maybe 20. I don't see it being able to be done in less than 10 or 15, though.
No,
Joe.
I agree.
Peg, I just want to come out and say that the few slides I put together wasn't an attempt to sway the presentation in one direction or another. I mean, you and JP are city councilors, so you know the audience there.
Right.
And you know, whatever the content here is, you know, I defer to you guys.
Yeah. So I like the idea of giving examples of jobs because I think that is something the city council needs to know about. I think they need to hear that, and I think they need to know about it. Like just looking at this, it feels like a lot of slides. So maybe I need to edit off, you know, some of the stuff that I did. Because I think each slide could be like 20 minutes, honestly. So,
oh God,
you know,
I hope not.
Well, you know what I mean, from questions and stuff, because they're going to be coming into this fairly cold, and so we will have to explain certain aspects. So I guess in my mind, I'm thinking, what's the message? What are the 3 things we want them to take away from this? And then who's going to speak to those 3 things, and what are we going to tell them? And then they either are on board or not. And then we have that marketing campaign we're going to do later once we get approval. And that's where we start to expand and expound on all the other stuff, I think. Just my thought.
Well, I took the liberty, you'll notice that we will not have any information on the legislation. I pulled that page.
Yeah, that's totally fine.
Just because I think, I think that was, we found it very wordy, and if they have questions about the legislation, that's fine, and we can
just cite the MGL without the
right. So that was a little bit shorter. The specifics here.
So this, I literally took this from somebody's minutes. Because I think I might have missed this meeting too. So I took this, but are these the things that are we pretty much landed on these things? These are the things?
We're there, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. We're there. So
these can be skinny down probably.
The one addition I definitely saw here was for the average single family homeowner, the cost will be X dollars. And I think it's going to come up, you know, like a 25 cents or 20 cents or something along those lines.
Oh, to the rest of us.
To the rest of us.
Okay.
as a cost of the program. I don't think it reaches 50 cents. Jen, please. Don't burst my bubble here.
Oh, no. I was just, because Peg wasn't at the last meeting, I just wanted to mention that when we had discussed this at the last meeting, I mean, like I was saying, from a math point of view, we can come up with a formula that will say, this is the savings that each, or not the savings, I'm sorry, this is the portion that each homeowner would contribute for a single family home, blah, blah, blah. But I had said that I would rather discuss that with Val, and because a lot of times when she talks about the tax rate and it going up or down, she refers a lot to what we have to raise outside of the levy. So I'd rather kind of get her wording on that. So that it's being said essentially by the people who will be doing the calculations. So just wanted to update you on that, because we did have this conversation, last time, and I mean, we can simplify it, but I think it makes sense to have it as accurate as we can.
Yep.
Okay. Any questions about that page?
I think it'll be a pretty easy sell, to be honest with you. I mean, it's not something that, it's not taxpayer money that's going into a random municipal project or to fatten someone's salary. So, it's going right back into the community. But I think you guys are right on point with this idea of showing the impact for single households. I think it just, people can understand it, and then they can probably get behind it a little bit easier just seeing that,
So we should probably get rid of, we probably don't need the application, the sample applications that I have. We probably don't need that. That was more, I don't know, that could be later. Although I don't know. I was trying to show the city council what people might be asked when they apply.
Right. I think it's fair to leave in there. I mean, that's me, but.
Say that again, Brendan?
I think it's totally fine to leave in there, because it at least gives them an understanding as to what someone might be expecting if they're applying for this and want to know a little bit more about eligibility. I know that we highlighted income brackets, but I think at least in the documents that you have provided on slide 12, it is at least gets into what we're considering for income.
And are those the right numbers?
Which one's here?
I think the next slide, straight down. Yeah, that one.
That one?
10. Go to 10 first.
Those
are those the numbers? We agree.
That number looks strange. This one looks about right. So yes, we should make sure we have that right. I don't have that right in front of me.
Okay.
Now let me make a note to check that.
Are you looking for the source of those two numbers?
Very, very close. And so, it's going to be out in April from the state and the federal governments talking about what you have to be eligible for low, moderate income housing if we stick with that figure. So these are examples of what they would be today if we were working under the figures that came out this April. So we kind of have to be.
I can put that note in.
I guess we could say anticipated income limitations. We probably should write something in there because.
Well, why couldn't we just say as of April 2020 so that people know that, they may change?
Where would we put that? All right. So as of April 2020 sounds good. Yeah. We could just say,
I'm taking notes, JP. You don't have to.
All right. Good. All right.
Yeah.
All right. So we were on page.
I think you want to go over to 11.
11.
There you go. So we're going to have to change this, obviously. December, we won't get the approval from the mayor.
Right. Deferral Program requirements. All right.
I should also say, JP, and I don't know the order we want to do this, the mayor wants a presentation to just her. And I don't know if we need to do that before city council makes the recommendation or after. Because honestly, if she just says, let's do it, we probably don't even need to get a vote from city council. So I don't know.
Yeah, we don't need a vote at this point.
So
Right.
I don't know which direction we want to go in.
But I think we should meet. Yeah, we should probably have a presentation to the mayor.
Yeah, so do you want to do that? Do you guys want to do that in January, or do you want to wait until after I mean, it's entirely up to you, but
Sooner the
just
better
wanted
is
a
my
couple of
thought.
people to walk her through it.
January,
Yeah,
my recommendation.
sooner the better.
All right.
All right, so we have the application, and that was not fit in any specific order. I'm not sure where that should actually fit at this point. But moving on to the pilot year, that shows the level of depth of what we had been talking about. And we did have just a little bit of tweaking in terms of when the applications are available, Peg, and I'll send this to you.
Okay.
And when the applications get returned and we have an initial review, and August 15, September 6 for financial eligibility, assess knowledge, skills, and abilities. I think those were the right dates that we had come up with. I'm not sure there's any specific, somebody can read those during the presentation. I mean, they can be read.
What's the thinking behind broadcasting that you can take an application on the 15th and putting 2 weeks later as the date they have to be returned? Like, wouldn't it typically isn't a job posted for multiple weeks? Or is it just posted? I don't know how that works.
I think we were trying to drive toward the end of September, and that was driving the dates so that we could launch. Now, it may be that the program doesn't have people for the initial sets of positions, and then you can punt. And I think take additional applications or go through a different process. Jen?
And I think too, some of that had to do with, I just lost my train of thought. We need to, because we need to make sure we give them enough time to put the hours in that they need. Like, we want to let them start that as early as possible, but we can't really, I think we decided on this timeline because of, if we're going to go to the mayor in January, and then, once it goes to council, it gets approved, we have to market it, you know what I mean? So I think that it just made sense to aim for it to launch on July 1st. So I think as we talked it through, that's just kind of how everything was laid out, based on being able to give them enough time to do their hours.
What were your thoughts on that, Peg?
I was going to say, because it's a pilot, we will have more controls around this than we probably will when we broadly roll it out a couple of years later. So I guess it's fine, because we would have a very finite number of jobs, and we could broadcast those during July, right? Kind of, here's what's coming down the line, post them on the 15th.
The date is not fixed in stone. If you wanted to move it out a month, that would just move everything else out a month, pretty much. And it might help having a slower summer. I mean, when people aren't in the office necessarily, on vacation during the summer, it might give a little bit more time for the review process. I don't know. So we could announce it July 7th or earlier in city council.
Here's my concern, that anything we do in this city has a varying amount of people who know that it's happening because of how things get communicated. And 2 weeks, we would have to do an awesome job in June and July getting the word out on a variety of different ways that there will be a small amount of jobs available to a few people. We're going to try out a few things, because I'm already envisioning someone calling up and saying, I had no idea you were doing this. I wasn't giving an opportunity, and now there's no jobs left. That doesn't seem fair. How did you decide who got to do the job? So, I mean, I just want to.
You've been a counselor for a while.
What did you say? I'm sorry.
You've been a counselor for a while. Yes, it would be a very appropriate citizen complaint, and that's why I think we had talked about, with the mayor's approval, we would then begin to partner with Easthampton Media during this period and get out public service announcements to the community that this is coming down the pike. We hope to have job descriptions prepared. So that's kind of how we thought about it. But hey,
is someone planning?
I think the minute the mayor approves it, we start talking about it and telling people about it in varying degrees. But
is someone going to be doing, like, I mean, could we start thinking of maybe like press release that, we could put out? Because I mean, Easthampton Media is great. Of course, we can use the public access channel through them, broadcast it there. I can even do PSA just on the people that have been serviced through the senior center. I could put it out through them, although that's only the people that we've served, so it's not everyone. But I think a press release would, at least on top of, like, using that in social media to put out the press release for folks who may not be looking in a paper for that press release, but just spreading the word in that way. I think a press release would be a great way to maybe.
Joe, I see your hand.
I wonder if the sorry.
I just want to underscore what Brendan said. I think a press release would be a wonderful thing, especially if the mayor herself was the person who announced it, and if it could be done on local television or something like that, either channel 22 or 40 or something, to basically come out to the community that way. I agree. I think that would be a good thing.
Well,
Peg,
I forgot what I was going to say.
Sorry. Jen?
Well, and I think too, especially because this is a pilot, we have to look at it like, if we present it to the mayor in January and she's on board, and, as that process moves along, okay, we launch on July 1st, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we don't start giving out applications beforehand if people are interested, based on the time that it takes us to get this approved and, get the word out and stuff like that. So, I mean, I think that as long as we stick to, what we say in terms of, we'll have to have the applications to us by a certain day. I mean, if people are asking about the program, I don't see why we couldn't, give out the applications earlier than this, is what I'm saying.
Right.
Yep.
So this is just a best guess of how we would envision it, and it's flexible and will change.
Yeah.
Was there?
But the budget wouldn't have been voted on until.
Well, typically in June, the budget gets voted on. Okay. And I'm not sure how much control we really have over the overlay account of the budget. Or I know no change has ever been made at the council level in that regard. But the whole budget package gets voted on and approved in June, typically.
And I think too, like from a budget standpoint, that, we're presenting this to the mayor and to council, and we're saying this pilot program is going to cost X amount of dollars because we're going to have this many people. So, I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm being presumptuous in this, but to me, it's kind of like, if you're agreeing with this program, then you're kind of saying, okay, then we're going to figure out a way to put that
To
amount of
make it
money
happen.
in the budget for this fiscal year. So,
So I guess we could in as you say, start earlier, and maybe get the ball rolling with applications in May, let's say, and that would give us plenty of time to pull it together.
Mhm.
Good. Do we have enough summarization of our previous meeting to have Joe or Peg pull together the package for any further refinement?
You're going to send this to me, right, JP?
I shall send it to you. Yes, I did have on a side, and I hate to bring up this issue again, but we had talked about someone serving in someone else's behalf, and that actually was the reason I had called Wellesley today, to just kind of further ask that question, and Kate, who I had spoken, Kate Burnham, was very helpful. She said, listen, if the person's on the deed, they can work for the party who's unable to work. And I kind of liked that. That was very, it defined if you're on the deed of the property, you can work. And it kind of made sense tax-wise that the tax bill would be the benefit, because it would be to the person who's eligible for the program or for the person who's providing the services who would also get the benefit. So that kind of made sense as a way to handle the question that we were going round and round with, which was, can we do this? Can we not do it? So I wanted to throw that on the table just as kind of see if there are any other thoughts about that.
So this would come into play like with a life tenancy or something like that, where maybe there's like a son or daughter who's on the deed, but could then potentially work for that credit for their parent or
for their parent on their behalf. And you would be paying I don't think you'd run afoul of any income tax payments, because you'd be paying a federal income tax payment, because you're reporting to the federal government the income earned by this individual, and that payment is being made through a reduction in property tax liability for that individual and for the eligible person. So I thought worked nicely that way. Jen?
I think it makes sense. Like I like the how defined it is, but I'm just worried that we might run into, unfortunately, there are many elderly people who don't have anybody else on their deed, but aren't physically capable of doing this. So I think they might feel that they're being kind of shut out by that.
And yeah, they would be. And I don't know how to make it available to everyone,
right,
without then running into the question of, well, this person has no tie to the property, and what if they, how do you? It just became real questionable.
Mm-hmm.
Joe?
Are we assuming that the seniors in that case have no skills?
No, they may very well have skills, and they may not be able to use those skills.
Well, can't we wait and can't we? I mean, rather than assume it's going to be an issue right from the get-go, can't we just wait and see what happens?
Oh, I don't think we need to say anything more about it other than we've discussed it, get the word out, and whoever is implementing the program, Brendan, is aware of how this can be handled when the time comes. I don't think we need to codify it at this point. Jen, Peg?
So I think that I probably veer off a little bit from where you guys are going with this, because I think the probability of having someone on the deed who can do the work is pretty low. And since the law allows, and all they say is an approved representative. They don't give any parameters. They don't say what the conditions are. We get to decide what the conditions are.
And we do.
And in my mind, so I'm envisioning a low-income senior who is physically unable to work in perhaps any capacity. Perhaps they have dementia. Perhaps their nephew is taking care of them, but they own the house. They have to pay the taxes. And my thought is that that person should be on an equal footing with another senior who's of low income, who, you know, is running marathons. Because if we're talking about giving credits, I'd like to give credits to people who meet the income and eligibility requirement. And if we allow a proxy, we need to allow a proxy, not a proxy with a bunch of conditions, because that doesn't feel cool.
Jay.
I love being able to say this. I 100% agree with Peg.
Yay!
I can now die. Thank you. Thank you, Jay.
Do you have anything else to say, Jay?
Just that the trust issue that was brought up earlier. I think Joe, a couple of meetings previously, had said we don't want to do that because then we've got, you know, trustees. There's a trust involved, and there's young people working for someone who has a trust, but
Yep.
this disabled person
Absolutely.
just can't. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think if we're going to raise that trust issue, I mean, and we're not talking about interpersonal trust, we're talking about a financial trust.
Right.
You know, I'd love to see how that's going to show up in the paper about, you know, the city of Easthampton is giving, you know, senior tax work off to people, you know, whose houses are owned by a trust. I mean, because when I hear the word trust in that sense, I mean, we're not talking about low-income seniors. We're talking about well-off seniors who have the legal means to set up something like that. I mean, maybe you have a trust, Jay, but
Well, you know, a trust is a legal method of allowing for money to be paid when the person who maybe his name is on the deed is unable to act in their own behalf. So it's basically, doesn't mean you have $1 million in the trust. It means that you have, maybe your Social Security checks are going into the trust and your nephew is the trustee and he's paying your mortgage and he's paying your electric bill.
So what
That's
is
really
this?
all the trust is. I
are you
mean,
talking about a supplemental needs trust? Because there are all kind of trusts.
I don't know what I'm talking about.
So if we want to talk specifics, then otherwise, I just think for the first year of a pilot program, that dealing with that whole
Leave the
issue
word trust out.
is bringing in a lot of work, unless you guys have other people who are going to come in and do the work here.
Geez, and I thought we had a simple solution to how Wellesley handled
Well,
it.
I thought
It sounded
we did.
good.
So I would rather we not do proxies if we have to do the proxy only when there's a name on a deed. That I don't, maybe I don't understand it enough to know how frequently that would happen, but I'm trying to think about it in terms of just the point of all of this is to give low-income seniors a break. And I don't want it to be something they have to go through hoops and they have to be, all these things. We're just trying to get, this is not huge dollars.
I think the issue that comes up is, and Joe had raised this, was how do you handle the income aspect in conjunction with the position? So there is to the federal government, there's income. The proxy is gets that reported as income. And and that started to trip us up. So I said, well, let me check with and I checked with Wellesley, and that was the first call, and that answer seemed to make sense that there was a tie to the house, so that solved the problem. So I didn't dig any deeper. Maybe someone else can dig a little deeper to see if they have how they resolve any of the other issues. Jen?
Would it be out of, would it be out of the realm of possibility to have like a proxy agreement, some sort of a form that if my grandmother wanted me to, or my neighbor even, okay, my elderly neighbor wanted me to work it for her and I was happy to do so, kind of like something that I could sign that says, I understand that I'm working to establish a credit that will go towards her tax bill. I understand that I will be getting, the hours that I put in will be taxed on a federal level. And then like the net would go as her credit. I mean, to me, it sounds like at least if we have someone who's agreeing that they understand the purpose of the program, what they need to do to get that person, that credit. I mean, as long as we're upfront with that from the get-go, then I think, because I also look at this like I don't know if there's a way it could happen, but I really don't want any elderly people being taken advantage of. And, I don't know that could be construed when we start putting proxies in place, but I would hate for someone to not have something in writing saying, yes, I understand this. And then at the end of it say, well, I live in Easthampton. How come I can't have the credit? I worked the hours. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm playing bad cop, but.
Well, I think to add to what you're saying, Jen, I think if you designed a form that not only the person who is acting as the proxy would agree to a certain terms and conditions, but also the person who's actually getting the benefit would come to this idea that, like, yes, I'm assigning this person to work for me. And I know I mentioned this a couple meetings ago, but I think I am responsible. Like, for example, the Mass Health PCA program, the consumer is responsible for creating their PCA coming in, setting up a work schedule, and they're, on top of doing timesheets and stuff like that. And part of that is putting a responsibility on them, saying, okay, well, if you want this freedom or if you want this benefit, that you have to accept these terms and conditions. So I think both parties, if they're signing off on something saying, we agree that the benefit's going to go to this person and that the proxy will not gain any type of, deduction for their own property taxes, even if they are an Easthampton resident, that it goes strictly towards the person who is applying for the program. And I think, there's this thing, right? So like half of my department, I have a lot of, 4 staff members of the COA are above the age of 65, and they're out there working part-time jobs. And so I think that some seniors may just opt into working part-time, whereas like someone who may be facing a lot of physical disabilities, may not be able to go out there and just be able to hop into a part-time job like that. I don't want to exclude them. So I think I think we have to look at it for, the purposes of making this equitable to all. I just feel like it's probably the safest bet. And I feel like it's the most, I feel like it's the most, positive approach that we could take towards this is that we're saying, yeah, we know that not everybody is going to be able to come out and work a job, but we do make it available to anyone, who can, find someone to work for them. I don't know. I just feel like I don't want to exclude certain people because I know that's going to come back and haunt us on some level.
I like the proxy agreement idea. Any other thoughts on that?
I also, just to add on to it, like as Brendan was saying that, I think it's good too, if we had both parties, the proxy and the resident, sign the agreement and put something in there to the effect of, the whatever hours are worked, they will get credit for those hours. And, that said, because if my neighbor thinks that I'm going to go in and I'm going to work the whole 40 hours to get the $1,500 credit, and then I have a family emergency and I can't complete the hours, it should be made clear that if the proxy can't do all of the hours, unless somehow, there can be another proxy to take the place or whatever. I don't even know if that's something we want to get into, but you know what I mean? I just think that we need to kind of make it clear that, the agreement is between the resident and their proxy in saying, hey, work these 40 hours for me. And if that doesn't happen, that shouldn't come back to us.
Right. I would like to see everyone included if we can. One of the difficulties that does come up, however, at some point is, let's say, dementia. With the older you get, that often is one reason why seniors eventually leave the program if they work for multiple years, and that's another issue. But
I wonder about like a POA too. And not to complicate things, but for example,
there are ways around. Yeah, there are ways around.
Yeah.
But there are also other programs. The tax deferral program is what often what folks transition to, is a program where they stop paying their taxes, and there's a minimal interest rate. I think it's like 5. It can be as low as 4 or 5%. And the money eventually gets paid at some point in the future when you no longer need the property. So that's often where folks transition. So any other thoughts tonight? Did we feel like we've covered this well enough to address the mayor? Should we are able to secure an appointment with her for a presentation? I kind of would like the entire committee to be there. I don't know if, Peg, you had a different thought on the format with the mayor. It kind of gives her a chance to meet with us directly. Yeah, I didn't mute you.
No, I did it myself. Yeah, let me ask her. I don't think she'll have a problem. We could also alternatively invite her to the, schedule one of our meetings and invite her to come to that. Mm-hmm. And then we do the presentation in that format, which might be that might make more sense, actually.
That might, yeah.
Invite her to our meeting.
Just don't leave me in charge of the invitation.
So I think we have a few things to tie up, but not a lot. Do we want to wait to schedule the next meeting when we have the mayor's attention? I would hesitate to schedule a meeting and ask her to come.
Yeah, I'll chat with her maybe tomorrow and find out how she wants to play this.
And we can handle that out by email.
Yeah.
In terms of setting up the meeting, if that's okay with everybody, unless you think we need to get together to discuss something else. Brendan.
Just really quickly, JP and Peg, you guys know better than any of us here. If it were to go to the mayor, it wouldn't be under the radar of city council at all, right? I mean, I feel like I want them to be aware of the progress that's being made and how the program will potentially be laid out.
Yeah, no. So we need to present to both. Okay. And right. I think the presentation to the mayor is to bring her up to speed. And then if it is her preference that we get the city council to recommend it to her, if she feels better, if all 9 of us say, let's do it, then we can do that. Alternatively, if she says, let's go for it, we don't need the city council, but we would still do a presentation to them because they're going to have to know about it. Okay. We just wouldn't.
That was my biggest concern. Yeah.
Yeah, we can do both, either, neither. We can permutate it any way we need to. Just real quick, I'm reading the Norwood guidelines for proxies, and they're basically saying that yes, the senior, well, in their case, the senior has to provide a note from their physician that they are unable to do a job of whatever skill level, and that they have to get the volunteer. That volunteer, and even on the application for the volunteer, it states that I understand that the property owner that I volunteer for will receive an abatement of whatever on their town of Norwood residential property tax. They have to sign it. And so it's pretty clear in their guidelines how that works. Not saying we have to do it that way, but I think it goes to what you were saying, Jen, where you just kind of lay it out there. And if they sign it, that's what they're doing. So, you know, nobody here, the thing that I'm stuck on is that nobody in any of these towns talks about you as a volunteer are going to get hit with a federal tax. I mean, it's in the law and everything, like it's stated, but nobody goes to any great lengths on any of these applications to say, oh, by the by, I am not seeing a lot of them.
I've heard from in my discussions with various communities, they said, oh, we get that word out up front. And I think it may be, I'm sorry, I'm not quite sure exactly how they do, because it's not, as you say, not necessarily on the application.
Right.
But I think a simple way of handling that would be to, let's say there's a packet of job descriptions and a packet of information like general income qualifying numbers, et cetera, and it should be on our sheet at that point. Here are the various jobs, whatever that introduction is, even if it's online, it's appropriate to say, and by the way, you might want to check with your tax advisor or accountant or somebody to make sure that you understand that it is reportable, it will be reported, and might influence any other eligibility you might have.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I will update the PowerPoint with you'll send me and I'll
send you that.
Send it back to you guys, redline it, all you need to. Well, I'll talk to the mayor and see how she wants to go. She may say, get approval from the city council before you come to me. I don't know what she's going to say, but I know that she's pretty upbeat about this. Like I've gotten clear indicators that she's just going to do it, but you know, that's why I kind of want to get to her before they get too far into the budget cycle, and there may be bad news somewhere, and then she'll be like, guys, we can't do it this year. So the sooner we can get this, and then I think we'll be better off. So
good.
And if when I hear back from Val and Lori, I will forward whatever they say in response to my questions to all of you.
Okay. All right. Cool.
All right.
It's been an hour already? Gosh.
7:03. If there's no further business, I would entertain a motion.
Nobody wants. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? Jen? Aye.
Aye, yes.
Brendan?
Aye.
Jay?
Aye.
Joe? Peg?
Yes.
JP, yes. Thank you so much. All right. Talk
All right.
to everybody later. Good job.
Have a good night.
Hey, have a safe and Merry Christmas.
Yes, you
And
too.
Hanukkah ends tonight, so celebrate. Take care.
Yep.